We are on. What's up, bro?
Once again,
we're back, and we're doing this. So, just because we're serious about this and we want this knowledge to be out there, like you mentioned yesterday, it's not about you; it's about the information being out and getting to the people.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right. Now, when it comes to African belief system, African traditions, why why is everything that comes from Africa deemed like poor or negative or bad towards the world?
Well, you gotta capture the civilization. Once you don't want to pay for none. This is okay. What y'all call white supremacy, racism, is not really white supremacy and racism and all that stuff. It's a business model. You know, I don't know, like you have a strip club, and a strip club doesn't look like a convenience store. It doesn't look like a bodega. It has a strip club look, it has a strip club clientele, and has a strip club model, or a bowling alley or a basketball stadium. And that's a commercial enterprise. It was the same thing with Western civilization, or what we call Western civilization. It's a business enterprise. It has nothing to do with inferiority, superiority, and stuff like that. It has to do with, as Dr. Clark said, wanting stuff that you don't want to pay for. And so in order to do that, you have to suppress that civilization. You have to create like how you create a business need for a product. Like if you creating a business need for like a mobile phone, you're creating a business need for sneakers, you create a business need for conquering another country or another continent in this case. And what you have to do is, instead of creating a desire, like you would create a desire for a telephone or a pair of sneakers, you create a sort of like a distrust or a dislike for that country or continent that you want to steal from. So you demonize the people. That's the business model. You demonize the people and you destroy whatever religion they have, whatever natural resource they have, the people, and you turn them into the villains. So that's why African spirituality is looked upon as bad. African culture is looked as bad. African civilization is looked as bad. African people is looked as bad, because when you think about it, the silliness of I'm better than you, I'm superior to you, is ridiculous. I always tell people, like, if I challenge Serena Williams to a tennis match, right? Does she have to stop me from practicing? Does she have to stop me from getting tennis lessons? Does she have to stop me from getting tennis balls? Why?
Because she's just the best. Like,
she's a superior athlete.
Yeah.
So if you're the superior athlete and I challenge you to a game, all you're going to do is say, I bet. When, where, how much, what's the deal, what's the total? Same thing with Simone Biles. If I challenge, she's the gymnast. You're familiar with Simone Biles, right? If I challenge Simone Biles to a routine, whether it's a floor exercise, the balance beam, or whatever, does she have to stop me from going? No. She's going to wipe the floor with me. She will probably won't even take the challenge. So if you're superior to me, why are you stopping me from doing stuff? Why are you preventing me from, from having my own civilization? Why are you taking my religion away?
What are some examples that that Europe has stopped African from having their own?
Well, you go in there and you savage the people, you kill them, you take their resources, you stop them from practicing their religion and their culture, you stop them from getting educated, you stop them from starting businesses. Let's take the African American community, right? It was about 5 or 6, maybe more, cities or towns in the African American community that were thriving, that was set up to do business. The African people would handle their own affairs. They had Seneca Village in Central Park. They wiped that out to build Central Park for white folks. They had Weeksville, which is not that far from here in Brooklyn. They had Weeksville, and they destroyed that. They had Rosewood in Florida. They destroyed that. They had something called Black Wall Street in Oklahoma. They destroyed that. These are famous things that they did to set black people back. What they did in Africa was 50,000 times worse than what they did in America, because those were small towns, anywhere from, 700 to 5,000 people. They were not large. You destroyed a whole continent. So those are the types of things that they did. And then they created a narrative that blacks were animals, blacks were beasts, blacks weren't human. There was a doctor in America named J. Marion Sims, and he came up with the idea that black people don't feel pain. So he was the
What?
Yeah. Okay. That what? Okay. That what? Okay. All right. I'm gonna get back to that what. I'm gonna tell you something that I found funny as hell. Right. There was this guy named John Thompson. He was a coach for Georgetown University, the Hoyas. Right. He was a famous coach. Right. Coach Patrick Ewing, Dikembe Mutombo, and Allen Iverson. Really, really good coach. So one time they gave him a job to comment on basketball, and one of the commentators kept saying, talking about Shaquille O'Neal, isn't he big? He's so big, isn't he big? He's so big. Now John Thompson's a big guy also, right? John Thompson's about maybe 6'7", 6'8".
6'7"? No.
Yeah, and Shaq is like 7'1", but Shaq was getting pounded down in the low post. And that's when basketball was basketball.
Oh, they were just like,
yeah, it's like, come bring that in here and take that with you. So this white guy kept saying, oh, he's so big, he's massive, he's so big, he's massive. And then John Thompson just screamed out, the man has a nervous system. I never saw John Thompson on TV again doing that show.
Oh wow!
Right? So it's like you said, what? Yeah, this guy actually. I mean, I don't know if he believed it. I just think he was a savage. But he said that black people didn't feel pain. So he was so-called the father of gynecology, right? A guy named J. Marion Sims. I wouldn't call him a doctor. I'd call him a butcher. So he would operate.
Oh, wow.
He would operate on women without anesthesia. Hysterectomies, he would do all kinds of, female surgeries without anesthesia. And
to everyone or
just to black women. That was his thing, like they don't feel pain.
And where was he from?
America, somewhere in America. I don't know what part of America he's from, but so that was the thing, black people don't feel pain. And Thomas Jefferson, he said that black people have different sweat glands and they smell a certain way and they have a funny odor. And this was written in his Notes of Virginia. So, and the funny thing about Jefferson, I wrote that in my other book, Why Black Men Love White Women. Jefferson had a friend who was French, and he helped translate a book called Ruins of Empires to English. And the book Ruins of Empires talks about the greatness of black people. And, I did some research on that when I was writing Why Black Men Love White Women. And it turns out that Jefferson knew this guy. So Jefferson knew that black people weren't inferior. He knew what he was talking about was bullshit. And then he said, I tremble for my people that God is just. Meaning, if this ever flips around and black people take over, he feared that he was going to get killed and his entire race would be wiped out. That's when he said, I tremble for my people because I know God is just. So that's why they suppress a lot of stuff, and that's why they they keep you from learning. They prevent you from doing a lot of stuff. They prevent you from having your own businesses. They prevent. Right now, the Trump administration is looking to wipe out aid for small businesses. They don't want competition, any sort of competition. So that's why they would do something like that.
Interesting. Yeah, no, it's It's like at any means necessary, stop this progress from happening. And then what happens to the people when their spiritual lineage gets disrupted?
Well, there's a breakdown. There's a breakdown. Culture is the glue that Dr. Clark said that holds people together. It's like we were talking about in the last video about tipping the 40s and your uncles and them tipping the bottle. Culture is the glue. It's like a roadmap. Like if you're playing football, right, and you don't have any lines on the field, you don't know where the next first down is. You don't know how many yards you got to go for a touchdown. There's nothing on the field. There's no end zone. There's no lines. There's no numbers on it. You don't know where the 50-yard line is or whatever yard line. You don't know anything, right? So you're just running across the field. You trade in the financial markets if you're a day trader and you don't have anything telling you where the market's going. You don't have any signals telling you where the market's going. Well, that's the culture of the football field, and that's the culture of the market. You need something to guide you. It's like stoplights on the road. It's like lanes on the highway. That's the culture of the highway. That's the structure in the culture.
Mm-hmm.
And once that breaks down, it's chaos. It's straight chaos because nobody knows what to do. There was a thing maybe about 20 years ago, something like that. They were talking about elephants in somewhere in Africa. I think the Serengeti or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they killed all the adult African.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not African.
All the adult elephants.
All the adult elephants, right? And they killed off the adult elephants, because they were poachers and whatever. And all you had was a bunch of baby elephants running around. And they were teenage elephants that didn't know how to live in the wild. So they would run around knocking stuff over, bumping into stuff, running into trees, attacking everything possible. And so they didn't have guidance and they didn't have the elephant culture that the old elephants would give them. And that's what happens in any sort of environment or atmosphere. If you don't have the culture, the glue that holds you together, you bug out. But it's very difficult to take away Black culture. Like I said, it's very difficult to suppress it because it exists. And eventually you'll come back to it. And they've tried. They tried with hip hop. They tried with taking the man out the house with welfare. They tried with
to sabotage.
Yeah, to sabotage Black culture. Because one of the main things in Black culture is family. That's like the foundation of Black culture. If you don't have any culture, you don't have any religion, if you don't have any music, if you don't have any sort of cultural customs, but you have a family, you will instinctively develop a culture and customs to make your families, as rich and thriving as possible. But if you're a broken home, if it's just a mother and a bunch of kids, it's going to be very difficult to institute certain things because there's no balance there. It's just a woman and kids. Same thing if it was just a man and kids. There's no balance. And culture adds balance to a lot of stuff. The woman adds balance to the male. The male adds balance to the woman.
And what would you say is one of the first things that people should do in order to get back into their spirituality, or like knowing? Because I feel like at the end of the day, things will come. Like there's signs, there's like messages that come either to dreams or through visions or something. What is one way that you would say people?
Well, it's what everybody always says: family and faith. Family and faith brings everything back together. I mean, you don't have to be like some Jesus freak, but you have to have your family and you have to have faith in God. Once you have family and faith, everything else will come together. Once you destroy family, you kind of allow faith to dissipate, because the parents, the mother and father, the grandmother and grandfather, they add assistance to your life. The mother loses the job, the father holds it down.
Right.
Father loses the job, the mother holds it down. Both parents lose their job, grandparents could hook it up. But now we live in a civilization, especially in the black community, where there are no grandmas, there are no grandpas. You know what I mean? There are no dads, there's no moms.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there are moms, but a lot of times there are no dads.
Right.
And if you have a broken family, you know, you you don't have grandparents or grandparents that's connected to you. A lot of people don't have grandparents because the grandparents may have died. But once you have a civilization where people are having kids in their 40s, in their 50s, grandparents are gone quickly.
By the
You're
age
supposed to be having kids. Yeah, you're supposed to be having kids at age 20, 21. So you have that generation. I saw this beautiful picture of these African ladies, and it was 6 generations. There was the baby,
Oh, I see.
there's the mother, the grandmother, the great-grandmother, and the great-great-grandmother. I was like, wow. And the great-great-grandma was like 80 years old. So these people were I mean, childbearing ages started as teenagers. But we don't have a society that's structured, because one of the biggest problems in this country is teenage pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a sensible society, a 16-year-old girl getting pregnant is not a big deal. But you don't have a structure set up to assist that. You have a structure that's set up that's bad. But the bigger and more extended your family is, like you have a grandmother, a great-grandmother, and a mother and a father, and you have a lineal structure, a serious generational structure, and there's a hierarchy, and you understand a pecking order, and a lot of times these kids out here, they don't understand a pecking order. They don't like one of my favorite families in the world is the Wayans family. They make a ton of movies. They've been on several TV shows and stuff like that. And when they go home, I think Damon was talking about his older brother. If Keenan says, yo, go get me some water, he goes and gets the water. And then if Damon's in the house and Sean or Marlon is in the house, and he said, yo, Sean, go get me some water, they get the water because there's a pecking order. That's a family. That's a structure. And the same thing with Kim, because Kim's older than I think Sean and Marlon. And if you watch the Wayans family operate, and see even in my family, when I go to my cousin's house and stuff like that, I'm this writer, comedian, this whatever. It's a pecking order. I'm the youngest of them all, so I got to take shit from them, and that is culture. That is a dynamic of hierarchy, and you have to have that family and faith. When you get a girlfriend, don't waste her time. Don't waste your time. You get a girlfriend, because I've done it. You get a girlfriend and you do this, you do that, but you got to get that girlfriend that's gonna ride with you. You got to get that boyfriend that's gonna ride with you. And if you have a kid, regardless of the situation, if you have a kid, you've got to stay. The man's got to stay, the woman's got to stay, because you have already crossed the threshold. You've crossed the Mason-Dixon line. You crossed the Rubicon.
That's a contract there.
Yeah. Once you have a baby together, you got to work that out. Oh, my baby mom's this, my baby mom's that. Yo, it ain't about your baby moms. It ain't about you. It's about the kid. And I always had a motto that I wouldn't sleep with anybody who I don't mind getting pregnant. So if I'm with a girl and I sleep with her, I don't mind if she gets pregnant, because if she gets pregnant, I know I can deal with this. You know what I mean? But you want to flop around this chick, that chick, it's just not going to be something that's going to be beneficial if you don't actually like this girl. Because like years ago, in the 50s and the 40s, you wasn't meeting chicks at record stores and at nightclubs and dancing with hot pants and all that stuff. You had to go and you had to meet this girl, and before you could even take her out, you had to meet her parents, and her parents had to meet your parents, and that was customary.
When did that stop?
Man, that stopped in like the late 60s, early 70s, because they had this whole nonsense called the sexual revolution and women's liberation and all that stuff. And then women started doing this, and that's when, black women started getting into porn because they said that's freedom of expression and it's freedom of this. Women, I mean, if you look at Sarah Vaughan and Ella Fitzgerald and Donna Washington and women from like the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, those women wore clothes when they sang. Now you look at chicks now, tits all over the place, asses out. Felicia Rashad. I don't know if you know who Felicia Rashad is, but no. That was the mother on the Cosby Show, right?
Oh, okay.
Right. She's just a stunningly beautiful woman, right? But she always dressed like a lady. And then she said, I see these young women and they're beautiful, and but they're dressed with everything hanging out. And the young ladies were responding to her saying, "Oh, she's this, she's this, she's that." This is a older woman. She has been there, done that. She's seasoned, as they say. She's trying to tell you how to run this game. Whatever you did, she avoided. You know what I mean? And they just ripped her open on what she said. And it's like, listen to this quote unquote elderly woman who is still stunning, still dignified, still beautiful, but you don't understand that you're a borderline hoe. You know what I mean? You a chick that's gonna get your man into a fight. You know what I mean? You're gonna go out and you're gonna look like this, that, and the third, and then you're gonna go to the bathroom and your man's gonna be at the bar getting a drink, and then 6 dudes are gonna come at you and try to get with you. And then your man sees that and he's gonna go over there and try to stop what's going on. But if you were dressed a little different, a little better, now this is wrong to a lot of people.
Right.
This is wrong to a lot. Let me give you an example. The 2 gymnasts, right? Simone Biles and Gabby Douglas, right? Top shelf gymnasts. And they had an issue with molestation by this coach, right? And I don't know if Simone or Gabby got molested, but this dude went down for molesting a lot of these young girls, right? And there was commentary between Simone and Gabby said, women should dress a certain way to prevent that stuff. And Simone was like, nah, that's bullshit. And they're both right. But the reality is, I should be able to go into a roughneck neighborhood, wear diamond rings and my gold chain and my Gucci bag, and come out of my Rolls Royce. I don't have a Rolls Royce. Come out of my Rolls Royce, leave the keys in it, and go buy, a pack of cigarettes, and nothing should happen to my Rolls Royce. I shouldn't get robbed for my jewelry. That's correct. That is correct. Is it likely?
Depending where you go.
Right. I'm talking about a roughneck neighborhood, a neighborhood that's about their business.
No.
You know what I mean? That's correct. I mean, I could do that in certain neighborhoods. I can go into certain neighborhoods. I could wear diamonds, whatever. I could park my car, I could leave the keys in the car, walk out, nobody will bother it. Mm-hmm. And that should be my right. But that's not my reality.
Right.
So both Simone and Gabby was right. But a lot of times you got to look at what's real as opposed to what's right.
Right.
I mean, women should be allowed to do whatever it is they want. But the average woman can't go outside at 2 o'clock in the morning to cool off. I do that all the time. I go outside 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, take a walk down Eastern Parkway, and I'm good. But a woman can't be doing that by herself. This civilization doesn't allow for that. So that's one of the things that's important, is how you present yourself and how you carry yourself, and that will keep the idiots away. That will keep the idiots away.
Now, would you say that there is a right way and a wrong way to reclaim African spirituality? When people are trying to reconnect with their culture?
I don't know if there's a right way or a wrong way, but that's something that somebody has to find out for themselves. Am I doing it right? A lot of people want to claim they're West African. They might be East African. They might be both. They might be South African. So there's a lot of culture in Africa. There's no one African culture. And you've got to, unless you're going back to ancient Kemetic culture and you want to focus on that, all right, that's cool. But it's not necessarily about retaining African culture. I think most importantly to start is retain the customs, things that are customary, right? And you retain those by, again, family and faith. You could be a Bible thumping Jesus freak, you know what I mean? And you could think that Jesus is a white blonde man. You could have that. But if you are with a family, you're taking care of your kids, you're investing, you're saving money, and you're handling business, and you own business, and you're about business, that is the first start to reclaiming your African self. Because the trueness about reclaiming your African self is family and faith. And everything else will pretty much fall into place. I'm not a big church guy. I'm not a big faith guy. Because, all the stuff I tell you about Christianity and stuff like that, I studied since I was a kid. So I'm not going to be on some Jesus stuff, but I am on some Jesus stuff in a different way.
How?
Well, the idea of Horus and the idea of Isis and the ideas of Osiris, that's the original Mother, Father, and Son, but they changed it to Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. So I'm down with Horus, who is the progenitor of Jesus. So the Christ, right, as just a teacher, and those teachers came in so many different forms. They came in African mythology, which is African world experience. And then it was handed down and it was changed to Jesus, and then it was Buddha, it was Krishna. Jesus was the last dude. I think Muhammad was the last dude.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus was before Muhammad, and then there was, I guess Moses would be the patriarch or whatever, or Abraham of the Jewish religion. But at the end of the day, it's all the same construct. It's all the same sort of hero's journey.
Now, when it comes to like reclaiming, right? Because a lot of people say, Christianity was made by Europeans, and then some people say Christianity was already in Africa, like you're saying, through Egyptian stories and stuff. Now, what would you say to someone who grew up Christian, right? And then they stopped being Christian, and now they're looking for something else, and now you're saying that, like, is it okay for them to go back to Jesus, or what is your take on that? Because I've seen a lot of people not regress, but like return to Christianity because they have nothing else.
Christianity is just another name for African spirituality and African spiritual system. You're always going to go back to Jesus, depending on which Jesus you're going back to. You know what I mean? You're always going to go back to a deity. You're always going to go back to someone that's above you. That's what the yarmulke that the Jewish people wear is all about. The yarmulke on their head just reminds them that there's something above them. It's not just a fucking little hat. It's something that reminds them that they're not the one. There's something above them, right? This is one of the reasons for the yarmulke. And that's the same thing with anybody else who's trying to find that guidepost. But the problem is it's not them finding the right way. The problem is they're following the wrong way all the time. You go to this church and this church and this church and this church, and the preacher's always jive. The preacher's always lying to you. He's trying to get money. He's trying to do this. He's trying to do that. But they're not bringing the congregation to where it needs to be. Boom. They're not practicing voodoo in its true sense, meaning when you go into a church and you're part of a congregation, a church and a congregation is supposed to be an extended spiritual family. You bring your family. We used to all go to church except my pops, my mom, my brothers, my sister. We would go to church, right? And we were Catholic. But that church only gave us a service, meaning the guy got up there and he talked about some stuff and he said some stuff and then he rang some bells. You know the Catholic stuff.
Yeah.
There was nothing productive that came out of it except that you went to church for an hour service. And I don't even know what the service was. What was I served? You know, so when you go into a church, your church should be community, meaning your church should have a financial structure, your church should have an educational structure, your church should have a cultural structure, your church should have all the human dynamics for you to thrive. You should be able to go to your church and you should be able to take a loan from that church. You should be able to go to that church, find your electrician, find your plumber, find your roofer. You should be able to go to that church, find a guy to fix your car. You should be able to go to church, find an investment banker, an attorney. That community should serve you. Service and serving are two different things.
Besides the Jewish community, what other church would you say has something at least close to that? Because I know Jewish people have their structures are very close with money, and people have is very structured.
Well, it's not Jewish people. The Koreans have it, the Indians have it. You know, everybody jumps on the Jews like they're the most close-knit society. You know, any Jew will tell you, you got 11 Jews talking about something, you're going to have 11 different opinions. Oh, no, actually, the joke is you got 11 Jews talking about something, you got 15 different opinions. You know, so it's about people setting up a structure of trust. Okay, like I was talking about it the other day. The Koreans have their Korean Association. I don't think we recorded. Did we record that?
No, we didn't speak about it.
Okay, there's a brother that I know. He has a supermarket, and he created this supermarket to help African American restaurants get food to because African American restaurants and Caribbean restaurants and stuff, but Black restaurants in general, they pay a ton of money for food. These little shops that you go and get your roti or whatever, you know, the Latino shop, they pay a ton of money for food, beans, rice, all that, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. So he figured that out because he was in business, and he had this apartment building, and there was a Korean grocery store on the first floor. And he was the landlord, and he got friendly with the Korean guy. And he said, yo, man, your rent is due. You know, what's going on? You have me? Said, you know, the guy goes, no, I'm going, I got my turn with the Korean Association is next week. So I'm going to go to the Korean Association and borrow some money, and I'll be able to pay you back. And so, you know, I had a little trouble, but I'm going. He's like, you got money from the Korean Association? He said, yeah. The guy goes, well, can I go to the Korean Association and get money? He said, no, just for Korea. No, only Korea. I mean, they have.
Where was this guy from?
What guy?
The guy who was the landlord?
I think he's an African dude. And the Africans have it too. Don't get it twisted.
The Susu, the Sun, we call it Sun in Dominican Republic.
Right. All my African friends, you know, send money back home to Nigeria or Ghana or wherever they're from, to Tanzania. So you've got to have. Black people have to develop that, you know, more so than anything else. You know, we tend to. I was talking to my boy the other day, and I'm gonna say the foreigners. And when I say foreigners, I mean like your Latinos, your Indians, Pakistanis, Eastern Europeans. They're gonna clean our clocks as Black people.
It's where you say foreigners, not immigrants. I like that. But go ahead.
What's the difference?
No, I know, but you know, immigrants is the word that gets the famous word that gets thrown around. Foreigners is gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, whatever.
That's politics.
I don't know. I don't like migrants. That's the term. I don't like migrants. I don't like illegals. I don't like illegal. I don't like.
No, but go ahead. You say.
No, but yeah.
Foreigners.
Yeah,
I like that.
Like my boy's a trucker, right? He's down in North Carolina, right? And he's a trucker, and he's been trucking for about 6-7 years now. And he got into it accidentally. And we were talking about it during COVID because he started like, just before COVID. And he says he is a unicorn because he owns his own truck, he has his own company, he runs for Amazon, and then when he goes to get his job, he goes to do his pickups and he's in the yards, the Eastern Europeans have taken over trucking in the South.
Eastern European.
Yeah, black men aren't trucking like they used to. They're not owner-operators. That's going to happen with the Pakistanis. That's going to happen with the Latinos. That's going to happen with everybody. And black people are not positioned in something. One of the reasons black people aren't positioned in that way is this whole thing about drugs. One thing about trucking industry, and not just the trucking industry, the licensing bureaus of the trucking industry, your CDLs, your Class A's, your Class B's, you could lose your license for life with 2 or 3 DWIs, driving under the influence. These cats can't pass the physical to be a truck driver. There's a lot of brothers out there trucking, don't get me wrong, but we need to be out there doing these businesses in mass. I go down the block, I see guys on the corner that could be trucking. You know what I mean? Chris Rock's brother's a trucker. He owns a bunch of trucks. That's one of the moves we got to make. And my boy tried to set it up where he could hire different people to truck, but these guys didn't want to do it. He gave this sister her own company. He gave her a truck. He gave her his lines, gave her everything, and she messed it up. And we're African American people. If we don't get it together, they're going to clean our clocks, man. The Indians in Jersey, they built like a $400 million Hindu temple.
Oh, I've been there.
You seen it?
I've been there, yeah.
All right. We don't have anything that's $400 million. And there's 70 million of us. You know what I mean? 70 million of us. $10 a piece gets us a $700 million.
Now, why is that a thing, right? So why can Indians build it, but African Americans can't?
Again, the cohesiveness of the culture and the mindset, as well as the trust and the need for the need to be socially accepted.
I mean, I've seen this temple here that has Egyptian statues here in Brooklyn.
That ain't $400 million, bro.
No, I know it's not that, but
Yeah.
like, what is that, and who uses that temple? Or
I don't know who specifically uses that stuff, but there's a bunch of those all over the place. You go on Nostrand Avenue, it's 58 churches. On one block. There's nothing happening. There's 3 niggas in on Sunday. But the thing about it is, what stops that is one, we have a thing in the black community called conspicuous consumption, and everybody believes that if they don't, there's a thing, if you stop buying designer clothes, that you have money to save. And then there are people argue, yo, it'll take 240 years for us to catch up to white folks. All right, get started. Start this year, and it'll be 239 years. Keep moving to next year, it'll be 238 years. You can't come up with numbers that's going to say, we need to do X, Y, and Z because it's going to take X, Y, and Z. No, just do what you need to do. Stop giving your money to these sneaker companies. Stop giving your money to these diamond companies because chances are you ain't getting no diamonds. You got to pay light, gas, telephone, rent. 90% of your expenses, your fixed expenses, is going to be going to somebody else outside of black people.
Somebody said recently, like if black people get reparations, they're just going to put a bunch of chain stores and they're going to get that money right back.
Yeah, well, look, they say that, and there's some truth to that, because business people will tell you, if I lost everything tomorrow, I'll get it all back in a year or 2, or I'll be back on my feet in a year or 2, because they have the mindset to do it. There's been challenges.
What is that mindset then? Like,
it's just a business mindset. They know how to do stuff. It's like in your I can look at somebody's social media feed and tell whether they're making money or not. You know what I mean? And if you got bum fights in your social media feed and you know people cussing each other out and balloon popping, dating shit and all that nonsense, and you ain't got no business people coming through your site or no opportunity coming through your feeds, then chances are you're not going to know that stuff. Unless you're a multimillionaire and you got a business going and you're doing your thing and you like jump, cool. But if you don't have that and you have stuff coming in that's not going to be beneficial to you, it's going to be problematic. The second thing is you can do everything right and lose it all. I've been there.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You can do everything right and still lose it all. And that's why you got to continue to do everything right.
Is there a part in your book that you speak about the business part of African?
Yeah, I talk about that in the voodoo portion, but I also talk about that in the business of filmmaking and the business of creating films. You know, like a lot of people don't know how films are made. A lot of people don't know how money is made in films. Filmmaking is one of the biggest risks you could take, and where it's like bungee jumping or skydiving. You know what I mean? It's touch and go. So I talk about that business stuff. But the reality is why blacks are not getting involved in certain things is that we have been pushed out of so many things. Like I said, we have the business acumen, we have the mentality to do it. It's just that they have pushed us so far away from one another. Like the first business is a mother and father. It's a collaborative effort. That's what business is. It's a collaborative effort. It's a mother and father. Business, if you have a supermarket, you need to collaborate with the soda companies, you collaborate with the cereal companies, you collaborate with the water companies, you collaborate with everybody so they can get your stuff, right? You open a supermarket, you know, representatives from all these major corporations will come to your supermarket and say, look, we got this new cereal, can we put it on your shelf? So it's like a no-brainer. They get phone calls, they get messages all the time to do stuff. So that's a collaborative effort. And one of the reasons that we are not in business like other people is the fact that we're not together as a people in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? We don't have to just be together as family, mother and father. We got to be together as cousins. We got to be together as friends. We got to be together as homeboys. You know, we got to really, because we have to work 10 times as hard to create and establish ourselves outside of everybody. There's a lot of problems in the black community.
Now, one of the things that people always blame, you know, like when they talk about structures and things, they always say the secret societies have something to do with it. There's somebody in higher powers, hierarchies that are messing up all of our structures. Now, what's true about that? And do you think black people should create their own secret societies or secret something?
There are secret societies, but you know by now these societies aren't that secret anymore. There are people who come together and they do certain things together and they help each other out. Again, the Korean Association, you could call that a secret society, but they're helping each other out. But one of my boys that shoots with us, he's a Freemason, right? He's got the Mason thing on his tags and all that stuff, and he gets helped out. I met a lady who was Eastern Star. Eastern Star is the female component of the Freemasons, and her father owned a lot of property. And if you're a Mason or a Freemason, there's some connections that you get you wouldn't ordinarily get. You know what I mean? There's some things that they do with themselves that they don't do with you because it's a brotherhood. Do black people need that? Yeah, but not at the level of Freemasonry and what they do. I mean, I know some of the things that they do. Is that necessary? I don't think so. But you know, one of the things about Freemasonry is like you become an initiate and you go into a system. And that's the whole thing about success. Success is about, I've been a one-man gang all my life. I've never had partners and stuff like that. So I never had a system set up for success. Like now, we're partners now. We're doing stuff. You see how much we've accomplished in the last couple of days because we've decided to do stuff, right? So now, what Black people need to do is, as African Americans, Black people. When I say Black people, I mean, you know, across the board. What we need to do is not necessarily create some initiation society like the Freemasons or the Eastern Stars, but we need to create the same mindset. We need to, like when the Freemasons do their thing, they become a brotherhood, and there's levels to it. You get initiated, you become this, you become that, you have your meetings, and it's serious business. I'm not going to shit on the Masons, but it's serious business. You could call them Illuminati, you could call them whatever you want, but they're doing their thing. They're protecting themselves from the bullshit that's out there. When it comes down to it, yo, I got this problem, I got this problem, I got this problem. Go see so-and-so. Go see so-and-so. And they'll make that problem go away probably. I don't know about that. I don't know what the motherfuckers do. But it's for us, we got to be able to go, we are a brotherhood. We're going to accept that we are a brotherhood. And we are going to help each other out. So we're going to meet in sects or in groups once a month. We're going to meet in groups of 20 in Flatbush. And then there's another group, you know, in Canarsie. And then there's another group in south side of Chicago. And there's another group in Los Angeles. And we meet. And then we have an annual meeting with the heads of this. You can't have everybody. There's 70 million niggas in this country. But we're going to have a meeting with the heads of whatever. So they might be 500 dudes and they meet, blah, blah, blah. And then they have their own separate things. And then they come back to the community and say, well, this is what we did. This is what we need. This is the money we need. This is how we're going to do it. And this is what we're going to build. That's what we need. We need a system that is going to help us get out of it. Everybody got a system except us. Our system is buying whatever we want, you know. Our system
that gives people freedom because you have the freedom to buy, and that's the freedom that people think.
Yeah, you know, one of the things, you know, which is funny. The lady Condoleezza Rice, she was a former, I think, national security advisor under George Bush. She said she was in segregation, and when segregation ended, her and her family went to this white restaurant to prove to the white people that they could afford their restaurant.
Their food in the restaurant.
Yeah. And now I'm talking about the 1950s. So I got nothing to say about what Black people thought about in the 1950s. I have nothing to say about Black people's mindset in the 1950s, whether it's in Chicago or Cameroon. I don't know what the fuck was going on. But the reality is, that mindset has to get out of our head where we have to prove to somebody that we are equal to them and we can afford their cars. Like Oprah Winfrey went into a store about 20 years ago, knocked on the door in France, and they wouldn't let her in because she was Black. And it was a big to-do. And then she had the owner of the store on her show and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you're Oprah Winfrey. Fuck what these people think. If they don't want to let you in their store, cool. You're not fighting anything. You're not doing anything to help Black people with that. They didn't let you in. Cool. Call all the friends you know that could afford to go into that store and say, yo, fuck these people. I can't afford to go into that store that she was going in. Most Black people couldn't afford to go into that store, but she knows a lot of people who could afford to go into that store. And once the people stop going to that store is going to learn. So that's the system we have to create. Nothing else matters but us. We ain't gonna buy this type of sneaker. We ain't gonna buy that. There's Black sneaker companies all over the country.
So would you say that in general, it's a part of education that's missing? A part of dedication, that education, like what's missing then? Like
it's a switch that's got to be turned on.
They've tried to do a lot of boycotting and things, but overall, what would you say? Because I mean, I'm like, yeah, you have all the answers. Like, I'm not gonna.
I don't have.
Right, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's not. I'm gonna be like.
Let me give you an example. Let me give you an example. Right. This is a strange story, but it's what I'm talking about. So I'm Guyanese, right? My mom's black and my father's Indian, right? So I was driving this German car, let's just call it that. Driving this German car, and the camshaft went. So I pulled into the garage, right, to fix the car. So I pulled up, and I see this guy peek his head out. And I saw him peek his head out. And he looked at me, I looked at him, and immediately I knew he was from Guyana. He knew I was from Guyana. I don't know how. We've never met or whatever. So he took the car, right? He checked the car out, and then he wrote up the ticket of what it's going to cost, gives it to the manager gives it to me. He pulls the car out of the shop and was giving the car back to me to make a decision. He looks at me, he goes, take my number down, bye. Don't come back here no more. So I took his number down, and he was my mechanic for like 20 years and became a good friend of mine. That's what I'm saying. He recognizes the system that's needed. He took the money out of the garage, saved me a ton of money, and put money in his pocket because he was doing side jobs. Right? Should he have done that? Is that
ethical?
Is that ethical? No, but is it ethical that they invaded our country and stole our shit? No. So that's what I'm saying. Black people have to recognize themselves. Black people have to hide, like this basement that we're here right now in, where the concrete on this basement was done by a black guy. He dug out and he fixed it up, poured the concrete in, and it took me 6 weeks to find a black guy to do that because I didn't want to find anybody else. I wasn't going. You go down the block, there's Pakistanis and Mexicans working on black people's houses. I don't have a problem with anybody working on houses, but don't complain about the white man and this and the economy, blah, 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 when you got other people working on your house.
Yeah, yesterday I was in NYU and I saw a pizzeria that had vegan pizzas. I was like, damn, that sounds interesting. Because I like to eat vegetarian food, you know. But then I was like, let me just go back to my neighborhood and buy from when I,
from the
community that is there.
Yeah.
It's the closest thing.
And that's another thing. That's another thing. You know, you go out to Chelsea and the Midtown Manhattan, you spend your money over there, those people don't give a shit about you. But whether it's, you know, Flatbush or Crown Heights or whatever, you spend in that community represents you. Whether it's a white store owner or a black store owner, you know you supporting that community. But it gets tighter when you're black. You gotta.
But there was an understanding, like that's an understanding, because you know when segregation happens, right? Like there's a part of me that says like segregation, it's self-segregation, right? There's segregation that's imposed on people, and then the self-segregation that you do for yourself. Like when I came to this country from the Dominican Republic, I went to Washington Heights and Harlem. That was like our places that we hang out. Came to Harlem, that's where I lived, but I will hang out in Washington Heights because that's where like I feel comfortable the most, right? I didn't speak any English. I don't know anybody in this country except for my family, and therefore the food I wanted to eat were in Washington Heights. The places that I wanted to visit were in Washington Heights because I was curious about like who's here, what is there. But we sort of lose that when we want to belong into something else, when we want to like partake. We're curious to find out like, oh, what is this culture? You know, and that's okay too. But don't complain then that like why aren't there these restaurants blowing up, or why there's so many restaurants closing up if you're not a customer of these restaurants?
Well, that's the thing. Look, everybody does it. The funniest thing I've ever heard was this TV show All in the Family with Archie Bunker. And he said, bring me your tired, your poor, your deadbeats, and they're all safe to come here. And then they came, your Crouch, your Heaves, your Nicks, your Spicks, your Wops, and the Spanish PRs from the Caribbean, and they're all here to live in their own separate sections, and they'll bust your head if you go in there. Archie Bunker was this racist character on TV. I fucked up that joke, but that joke is hilarious. But that's what people do. You know, there's a Guyanese Indian community in Richmond Hill, right? And there are Guyanese Indians in it. It's not that they keep people out, but they go there, they set up their shit, right? There's in Jackson Heights, it was an Irish-Italian neighborhood when I was a kid, right? Now it's Indian and Pakistani and Latin American, right? Mainly a lot of Mesoamericans.
What part? Yeah?
Jackson Heights, Queens,
okay, yeah.
right? And then there's another area in New York called Flushing. And Flushing used to be Irish, Italian, white people and stuff like that. I had tons of friends in Flushing. It's all Asian now, Japanese, Korean, Chinese. So people go and they find, like there's another spot in Manhattan, used to be Little Italy. Little Italy was a big, thriving Italian community. That's one block. It's all Chinatown now. So people are gonna come and do that. We don't have those communities.
Well, there's Little Caribbean and
those are not those are not thriving business communities.
Okay.
You know, you getting a fucking jerk chicken and a fucking beef patty is not a thriving business community because one, you don't own the property there. Like a lot of stuff in Chinatown is owned by the Chinese. A lot of business are owned by the Chinese. A lot of the distribution and the products that they sell are Chinese products. What is the issue is we need black business communities.
How do you set that up?
You buy from black businesses. You know, I had a friend who had not only you have to buy from black business.
Well, Harlem was one of them. You know,
Harlem was not a black economic community. Harlem was just a place where black people were. Weeksville, Rosewood, those are thriving black communities. What I'm saying is you need to do business in a business-like fashion. For instance, one of my friends had a club down on Nostrand Avenue, right? It's one of the hottest clubs in Brooklyn. I mean, in Brooklyn on Nostrand Avenue, this guy was selling $700 champagne bottles on Nostrand Avenue 10 years ago, right? So he's a Haitian cat. And the neighborhood was getting what everybody calls gentrified or whatever, right? So I had a problem with the whole gentrification thing, but the neighborhood was getting white, right? So what would happen, the club would close out about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, but then people would be outside the club cussing and carrying on, revving their motorcycles up and stuff like that. You've got to conduct yourself as if that is your business. When you leave the club, you go home. You leave the club quietly, you leave the neighborhood quiet. They shut him down. He lost his liquor license, and that's the end of it. Once you lose your liquor license, you're done, because that's a major portion of your revenue. Now, what is that place right now? It's an Indian store. It's an Indian health food store. They sell Indian and spices and herbs and all that stuff.
Where is that again?
So on Nostrand Avenue. So, you know, from what I understand, they lost the liquor license. The two of them got into it because somebody owned the building and he was the business person or whatever. But a lot of times, we don't know how to conduct ourselves in front of a black place of business. And then we say some stupid shit like, how much money I spend in here? What the fuck you mean I can't be? Bruh, that's not how it goes. You don't come here and destroy the environment. They used to have something called First Saturdays at the Brooklyn Museum. And these girls used to come out there dressed like they're going to the Oscars. And these dudes used to come. First Saturdays hit for about 2 summers. And then these grimy ass motherfuckers started coming from these roughneck neighborhoods trying to get at these girls. And they used to disrespect these girls. And it just became chaotic. They had a big ballroom. You can go and dance. Funny, one girl saw me like 3 years ago. She said, "You don't remember me, do you?" I was like, "Nah." She looked at me. She said, "You danced with me for like 2 hours at the Brooklyn Museum first set." I was like, "Really? You remember that?" She said, "Yeah." And I was like, "All right." But that's how it was. It was really communal, you know, because it was a lot of, you know, there was a lot of black people who cared about each other. And these roughnecks came and brought some hoochies, and then it became a competition. And then they didn't shut it down, but they kind of chilled it out. They made it a little different. We have to, when we go into a black establishment, we have to act like that is our establishment. If it's a nightclub, don't come out raising hell with your bottle outside, pissing in the street or whatever. When you leave the club, leave the club. You know what I mean? Because you can't do that in Chelsea. You can't do that on the Upper West Side. Why are you doing it on Nostrand Avenue? And those are the type of things that we have to reel ourselves in and think about it. If this was my establishment, and it is my establishment, because a brother owns it. A brother owns it, so it's mine. I'm not gonna make any money off it, but it's where I go.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're
right.
served.
They had a spot called 3Bs, right, on Bedford Avenue. My man, rest his soul, used to do a comedy night over there, right? But there were a lot of roughnecks. And 3Bs was this big restaurant back in the early 2000s, late 90s, right? Right on Nostrand Avenue. And it was a nice place. You go, you get some food, you watch some comedy, boom, 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 wah, wah, wah. But there was some people that were involved in that 3B stuff, and they shot a community activist, a guy named Pooh, right? I knew Pooh. They shot him up in the subway. That was the end of the club.
Dang.
That was the end of the club. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, that was the rumor, but to me, that was the end of the club. Because after that shootout, that was the end of it. So this is what I'm saying.
There has to do a lot with respect.
It's a lot of black bullshit that's stopping us. We don't have to go out there and be the hardest nigga in the club. You know, I've been in a lot of fights, man. Fighting hurts. Remember when we was just training, it hurts. Fighting hurts, man. It's not something you want to, our bodies are not built for combat, okay? Fighting hurts. Get off the gangster lean and just chill. Go out there, spend money. If you're angry, if you're upset, stay home. Shoot up your house. Don't go someplace else and shoot up. I mean, I'll go someplace else and shoot. And this is part of our culture now.
It's adapted into what black is.
What black?
So when people say, "Oh," and this is the funny thing about I'm not black, I'm Dominican. Like we can go back to that later on.
Right.
But it's like when you say you're not black, or when you say you're with you're Guyanese, you're trying to disassociate yourself with that kind of environment because it's adapted into the culture, and that's what people sell.
Well, I don't really disassociate myself
from
not
anything
you personally,
black.
But people try to disassociate themselves. There are black people. There was a guy who wrote a book called Our Kind of People, a guy named Lawrence Otis Graham. And he was talking about how light-skinned people are not like dark-skinned black people. And he had this whole big book about it. It was the stupidest fucking book.
Light skin versus black?
Yeah, it was a light-skinned, dark-skinned book. It was called Our Kind of People. And he wrote this book, and he was talking about, I mean, he was saying the dumbest shit in the world. He was like saying, no matter how much Michael Jordan tries, Oprah Winfrey tries, or Bill Cosby tries, they will never be us. Those are three of the most accomplished people in the history of America. Michael Jordan? You mean Michael Jordan ain't equal to your light-skinned ass? Michael fucking Jordan? Just on the basketball, fuck his money. Just on what he was able to do as an athlete. He can't come to your party?
Wow.
Oprah Winfrey, incredible broadcaster, one of the most talented personalities ever to do that game. And then Bill Cosby. A lot of people don't know about Bill Cosby is he is probably the best technical comedian ever. Bill Cosby is probably the best technical comedian ever and a hell of a writer. And he was worth about $400 million. This dude wasn't worth that kind of money, but he was saying that our kind of people. So there's
Was he separating himself because he was light-skinned?
Yeah. That was his game. That was his game. And then he started dressing his kids, you know, in these preppy sweaters and, with the sweaters tied around the neck, and he thought that was going to keep the cops from harassing his kids. Like 20 years later, he found out that was all bullshit. And he had to go on that fucking dumb fuck journey to find out, oh, I'm a fucking idiot. But this is the type of mentality that some black people have when they see, the quote unquote other side of the black community wilding the fuck out. But the other side of the black community has to chill. And that talented.
They don't have to go all the way that way like this guy.
No, it's just a matter of balance. You see, back in the day, in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, when black people had absolutely nothing, they had family. You know what I mean? And they were working to do certain things. There were people who devoted their lives to assisting black people. Now there are a lot of people who just jive, a lot of these preachers. But there were preachers who went to Congress. Adam Clayton Powell was one of them and changed a lot of stuff. So what happened was our communities got destroyed with welfare. Feminism destroyed the relationship between black men and black women. Hip hop degraded black women and destroyed the respect for black women. And now we see a sea of bullshit, We see a sea of bullshit. There was an incident. It's a funny fucking story. There's an incident where we're in Brooklyn, New York right now, just so you know. So a lot of shit I'm going to talk about is about Brooklyn.
Based in Brooklyn.
Yeah, but there was an incident on Utica Avenue in like Lincoln Road or whatever, Lincoln Place, whatever, right? But like 15 dudes beat up on this little girl, right? Dude, when I was a kid, you put your hand on a girl, you have problems. No matter what that girl did, you had problems. You was getting punched in the face by somebody. You was losing teeth that day. For 13, 15-year-olds to stomp on a girl, it's not who we are.
That's crazy. That's
not who we are. One of the dudes that stomped on this girl, his father lived right in this basement. He lived right in this basement. And I found out that one of his kids was beating up on the girl. I said, yo, what's up, man? How you let that happen? Hey, mother do that. Hey, mother. No, bro. You're the father. You got to control that boy. You weren't there. That's why that boy is jumping on a girl, because you never taught him how to be a man. Now he's 15 years old and he's fucking stupid. And it's like, that's the shit that we gotta fucking throw out.
Yeah, so yesterday we spoke a lot about that stuff, like in the previous video. And yeah, we can go into some of that stuff. And we're gonna take a break now, and we're gonna be right back. And we're gonna talk a little bit about Freemason and how we can connect all that stuff with African history. Peace.